Hi there, so today we are going to talk a bit more about Scrapy Architecture. When I say architecture, I mean overall layout of Scrapy project and what each field represents and how you can finally use them in pair with your Spider code. Let's start with the root directory, which contains project folder, which is this one, and then configuration file. This file, Scrapy needs it to direct it to where our project lies. The config file needs to be in the root directory, so code can be executed correctly. If we go into this file, you will see that it's pretty straightforward. So here we have two tabs. The first one is settings, the second one is deploy. The settings tab is going to pretty much inherit or go to our project folder and go into settings.py. And deploy tab is going to have the URL, which is going to be localhost, and project variable is going to direct to project folder. Speaking of project folder, let's actually go in, and the first file, for example, is init.py. This file is of course used to mark directories on disk as Python package directories. Next one is items.py. Now you can pretty much return or yield as we did here in our Spider code. So this is the Spider that is the basic one from the third video, and pretty much once again you can yield straight items from Spider code like we did here, or you can define it in items.py, for example, and you have more than a few good reasons why you should do that. Scrapy.item is or are objects of bottom line, there are simple containers used to collect the scrape data, and they provide APIs similar to dictionaries with similar or convenient syntax for declaring available fields. Now, why would you once again want to use data points defined in items? For example, if you want to get the data in a CSV file in some specific order, for example, the first column always has to be h1 tag, and then the second one has to be tags, then defining items here and kind of merging them with the Spider code should be a viable option, and it will be the solution to the issue. For example, also serialization can be customized, and you can more easily find memory leaks if they exist, and you will have more readable output of scrape data and Scrapy logs, as you will see in a few minutes. So let's actually define our items. Currently we have just two items. We can delete this yield, and pass, we can also delete that, and let's define them as a scrapy.field, open and close parentheses, save them, go to the Spider code. What we need to do is import two modules. The first one is going to be item loader, and it's going to be a tool for pretty much merging the items.py with the Spider code or quotes.py. So let's do that. So from scrapy.loader, import item loader. Let's actually do the same thing for Scrapy Spider. So from Scrapy, import Spider. And finally, let's use single quotes instead of double. And the last module is going to be the local one. So we are just going to go into items.py file in our project directory and fetch this class. And then this class will automatically fetch these two tags defined here as a Scrapy fields. So to do that, you should type in from quote or quotes Spider, which is name of the project, and then let's see, dot items, which will go to the items.py. We will import the class, which is going to be quote Spider item, and then in code or in parse function, we need to define first item loader. Let's define it as a variable name L. So type in item loader. Item is going to be pretty much this class that we defined in items.py, and then response is just going to equal to the response, meaning pretty much this page, aka homepage of quotes to scrape.com. Let's actually kind of load them. To do that, you should type in l.add value. Give me a moment. Open and close parentheses, and then let's copy and paste this code. And here we can type in h1 tag, as you will see, and then tags here. Finally, we can just return them like we did or yield them previously by typing in l.load item, open and close parentheses. Save it, go to the terminal, type in Scrapy crawl quotes, and let's see if it will work. As you can see, it works. So previously we didn't have prettifying items, so to speak, meaning that every sub item will be in, or each item will be declared or using new line. For example, if you had task to scrape 50 plus items from some specific page, then because these items, once you are using items.py and merging again Spider with the items, you will have them in ordered list or in ordered dictionary, which is going to be great for quickly navigating and then debugging items, if of course necessary. Let's go back to our Spider code and let's see what else we need to figure it out. Next file is going to be called pipelines. Pipelines.py is just going to be used when receiving an item and performing an action over it, also declaring or deciding if the item should continue through pipeline or be dropped and no longer processed. For example, let's say you had task to scrape some e-commerce site and the price included does not include, for example, your local taxes or something like that. So then you would isolate some specific item names such as price and multiply it by 20 or 50 whatever percent and then return item like we did or like you see here. Let's actually make an example and go to our Spider code. H1 tag, as you can see, the output is in a form of a list. The first item and only item in the list is in a form of a Unicode, and it reads codes to scrape. So let's actually go to the pipelines.py and define, for example, if statement. So if item and then dictionary key is going to be h1 tag. So if item is h1 tag or the dictionary key of the item is h1 tag, we will process them by using or pretty much defining it as an uppercase, really. So this will be all uppercase, as you will see in a moment. And then we can just return item. This should work. So let's try it out. And most likely it won't. Okay, so it won't. The reason why is because we need to go to our last file, which is called settings.py, and then define here pipelines. Here, as you can see, here we have item pipelines. And by commenting this out and going in and copying and pasting this specific class, saving it, and then running it once again, as you will see, here we have again processing some error with processing. So let's see what is the issue. Okay, so h1 tag, and if it is, then okay, so I already know it. So what's the reason why? The reason why is because we are going to use uppercase in a list, and that's not going to work, so we'll have to use list slicing. And so let's run it once again. And as you can see, it's in a form of a Unicode right now, and it's all uppercase. So pretty good. To get back to the settings.py, let's see, this is our last file that we want to cover today. Here we already covered some of the settings, such as just previously mentioned item pipelines. For example, robots txt obey is set to false. For example, some sites are going to or not going to, well, declare or really you can't be, or you won't be able to see your data points or really just anything from the site if you don't decide or use user agent. So just bear that in mind. If site, for example, uses some status code as a 503 or 504 or something like that, most likely you will be sort of detected without having an user agents, and so you will have to define it here. The most important one for me, at least, is called download delay. If saved settings.py like this, you will download each request by 3 seconds. And you can use this to be, in quotes, a bit more friendlier to sites. And also you can, for example, each and every really setting, you can define it here once you run the spider. So you can define it as a -s, which stands for settings, then all uppercase download, for example, delay, and then set it as a 5 or so. So this will delay, again, each request by 5 seconds. There are a bunch of settings, to be honest. Cookies, for example, for some reason, they might cause some issues with you, so you can just define them or use them. Also, there are request headers, so something similar to the user agent. Some sites don't allow you to view their data without request headers. Also, there are a lot of extensions and middlewares. Item pipelines, again, we covered that. These are for auto throttling, and this is for the HTTP cache and the settings corresponding to it. And that will be it pretty much. So once again, you can pretty much set it here, settings, or you can go in once you run it and then define, for example, user, of course, all uppercase, user agent, and then define it as Mozilla and then the version number, etc. And that will be it for the 5th video. We'll get back to building something in the very next one, and I'll see you there. Talk soon.